Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. It's Shirley with Spirit of Matter. And I'm here um, on a Saturday, which is Saturn Day, where Pluto activity is felt more. And I have thoughts. So I was thinking about AI, and then I was thinking about, oh my God, what is AI is probably already running us. But then I was thinking about another thing, and this is mushrooms. So mushrooms in general, whether it's the mushrooms you have in your food, the types of shrooms that people take to get high or to overcome trauma, um, and in general of fungi, okay? So those thingies, they have effect on our nervous system. And Pluto is shrooms, mushrooms, but also fungi, and Aquarius is a nervous system. I had a Facebook friend. She's talking about people beginning to create clones of our mind, and they use it for, unfortunately, also malefic things. But um, she said, why is, I don't remember, something to do with occult symbolism, it's probably also on the currency, looking like a giant shroom. And I'm like, dang. So back to COVID days. COVID days, I was working on my aromatherapy business and so on, and treating toenail fungi. You're gonna hear a lot about this toenail fungi. Anyway, um, the thing with fungi, they created a place where it's damp and there is stagnation. So we want to create movement, but they affect nervous system. And my bestie then had a friend who was a researcher in fungi. And he said that this is a very fascinating form of life. It's the most giant form of life we have, very global. And fungi can alter the decisions of living species, also to their detriment. So, for example, making ants suicide. Okay? So, I'm beginning to connect a lot of things right now because science is exciting, but it's also like beginning of an antidote because there are fungi that improve our functioning. I didn't have experience with, like, I never took shrooms or any psychedelic stuff or anything like that. But there are fungi that improve for our functioning, and there are fungi that are detrimental. There are fungi that can kill us. Fungi affect our nervous system. This is why, if you have also in the teeth, okay, a little bit, yeah, sometimes it happens. Okay, you go about your day, you don't, you do your routine check, and then you notice something is going on. Even toenail. Okay, people think it's an aesthetic problem. No. Candida. No. So let's talk about how fungi is created in the body, that which is detrimental. And we're gonna have an antidote to a lot of things that are global, altering people's decisions to their detriment, and are parasitic in the sense that they consume, okay, for people. Okay, so one thing is you create movement in the area and you nourish yourself. It's a combination of nourishing yourself and not the fungi. For example, people have candida. It's about, oh, you try, at least try to reduce the foods that are, feeding the candida. Okay. It might be less difficult when there is world hunger and you're in a shelter. This is what happened to me, by the way. I began to treat that, and then I went homeless, and in the shelter, you have the food of the shelter. It was very tasty, very tasty. But of course, it was a problem. And when you see that, yeah, this is fascinating. But with fungi, they create movement. You want to increase on with however access you have for the food. Now, if you have problem with the access to the food, don't worry. because you're going to learn about the food itself, okay, with the food industry. Why do you have access to, let's say, avocados? Okay, how are people treated in the agriculture of avocado? Now you get interested because in the past there was this avocado. It was lying in the supermarket. You bought it maybe once in a while. It was rotting because it turned bad very quickly, and you weren't paying attention to the avocado industry because you weren't consuming that, right? Then you went to regular medicine. They told you, I don't know, I have this, I have that. Didn't work. You went to holistic medicine. They said, yes, but you have to change your nutrition, your habits, your decisions. And you're like, okay, I'll try. And suddenly you want to eat avocado. So you say, oh, avocado is very expensive. Okay? Then you decide to make a decision. You buy this avocado. And then you learn about what the industry is, what the trouble of the industry is. Now you have to tend to that. Okay? A milk industry, for example, is a good reminder of when I drink a milk, is not so benefic. Like, almond milk is preferred. Let's just say that. Or if you can get milk from actual farm that is doing this way without torturing animals or raping them or something like that, that would be super. And again, I'm not against drinking milk. It's just like for the process of it. So you pay attention to those things. And that's beginning to undo certain stuff because you create movement for essential oils. Almost every oil is antifungal for different reasons. I still have to learn a lot about this. And I've been tending to it for a while. And so diversity is important. When you have fungi, let's take toenail, okay? You need to put for the dosage of the oils every day, but I would tell you, if you can put each day different combination of oils, let's say you have them diluted, okay? Because people do a blend. It's nothing wrong, but I noticed that what you want is to create divergence. You don't want to get too fixed, because this is where you doing something for the fungi. That is stagnation. So if I give it the same thing every day, this is how it was created. Okay, for some of you might not work. That depends. You want to check what to see. But if you change a different thing, think about your nutrition. You don't eat the same thing every day. If you eat the same thing every day, then something is missing for your nutrition, right? This is also when people travel. They eat different food. They get different bacteria. They get healthier. The immune system gets healthier. And so creating that change, and you pay attention to the things that come up. I was putting my patchouli. You don't do it clean for most oils. You dilute it a little bit with any oil that is base oil, that is vegetable oil. I know this is already a lot for you to study. For example, olive oil we had missing, and then I bought from a Druzy woman who made olive oil, best olive oil ever. And now we're changing the brand because we used to buy from a certain brand, and it was like, it's got expensive, it's got this, it's got that. And then I bought this Druzy oil, this special Druzy oil, and I was like, we should buy a couple of these. So yeah, absolutely. She comes from the north to the south, which is a couple, I think 6 hours drive at least. So that was nice. And then let's talk about the role of fungi, because they affect the nervous system. They cause you to make bad decisions. It's true. Think about what does Candida like? It likes sugars. Now sugar is lovely. Our brain runs on sugar. Okay? Even when we eat fat, fat is basically a way to store sugars that is more efficient. That's why we eat fats. But our brain is translating that to sugars, and it runs on sugars. And then it creates something, the electricity. So there's nothing wrong, okay? The question is, where do you consume it? How do you consume it? But if you want the excess sugar, that's candida, okay? And then for it wants to be fed, okay? So you got to feed yourself rather than that which wants to eat you. And for the candida, it's parasitic. So you think about the behavior of it. It's like it wants to consume you, but let's say they run out of you. Okay? You seem like a pretty giant meal. It's way more pleasant than to hunt for your meal every day. But when they are out of you, they're also out of food. Okay? And you think about the levels of operation with people that have this candida or that have this type of fungi. You want to think about mold, you want to think about your teeth, you want to think about your nails, you want to think about your nervous system and the fact that our nervous system is communicating with each other. So when you create a change, you're basically feeding patterns that are more healthy for you and less healthy for the type of fungi, is not fungi, that is malefic for your well-being. So on a holistic level, it's just a presence to be present in your body, and that there's literally even a spiritual entity that find your being cozy. Okay? Now, if you are too well-behaved and love each other and everything is fine, maybe you can get along. For example, Palo Santo. So I have it here. A tree Palo Santo, okay? It grows, it grows in a way where it has to go through many moons before we can use it. I know people say it's cultural appropriation, cultural this, cultural that. There will be growing more trees. You just need to stop killing the girls, stop raping the women. There will be also less colonialism, and there will be everything fine, and we'll not also need that much Palo Santo, and everything will be okay. And then you can make money, you can export this, you can have good economy. So that is one answer to that, okay? Colonialism is bad, but also infanticide, democide, femicide is also bad, right? So that is a tree that gets along with the many things that want to do it harm. It lives in cohabitance with, really. And then when it falls, it has to die a natural death to fall. So plant a lot of Palo Santo trees. And then it grows to many moons. Then we have the oil, or we have the sticks that we use for the incense. Fantastic smell. Very dominant. The notion of unconditional love, of course, antiviral, antifungal, anti-this, anti-that. But the thing is that there are some trees that live together with fungi and they cohabitate. Now, if you think about yourself like a mini tree, okay, you're pretty stable for them. Okay? They arrive to you through, they must have mixed your toes with the roots of a tree. Okay? That's how they get there. And then they saw there's something pretty stable, and they cohabitate and they eat. Now, the thing is, if you don't consume something from the fungi, that you have a cohabitance, don't look at me like that. All of you taking, what is this, Rishi, I don't know, for these things that they make to do sex, then you consume fungi, right? It's just that there's this fungi, yes, that fungi, no. So you need what? Discernment, which is an Aquarius trait. Also, think about discernment. When I was a child, then they taught us, it was less an issue, although people do forage for fungi, shrooms, mushrooms. It's the same species. It's the same. It's the same thing, okay? Fungi, shrooms, mushrooms. So people forage for fungi basically, and you need a lot of discernment because they masquerade themselves very well, and the difference can be between something that's nourishing for you, or just tastes good, and something that is poisonous. And so, with fungi, the art of masquerading themselves, and there's such a variety. So variety is important. Also, when you combat fungal infections not desired, variety of ways, okay? So if it's the food, you need a lot of variety of food. Maybe you would need to travel, okay? It means that if there's something you've been doing in your life in a fixed way, you need to find new ways to do that. Why, for example, when you combat a psychic attack, sometimes like I do that and it doesn't work. I do that and then it works and then it doesn't work. Or for neural diseases, Oliver Sacks talked about a lot of neurological anomalies and prescribed the medications, and he made a cocktail where the person would change the dosage of the medication and it would be dynamic. Why? It's a chaotic system, right? But if what affects this is also fungi, and fungi have a lot of diversity, then we need diversity. We need to begin to create a diversity. Think about, how do you combat a psychic attack? The power of your voice, the power of your singing, the power of your movement, the power of doing decisions of what you want, not what the fungi wants or doesn't want. Sovereignty. Okay? Improving upon your nutrition, raising into awareness, okay, meeting with different people, finding new ways to do things, okay, that is basically kind of a reminder for your nervous system. Okay, so that is also that thing, for to not to become stagnant. And another thing that goes into that is what we think about choice. Because if there's a fungal infection, okay, we have to be discerning. Is it my choice? Is it fungi stuff? Same with psychic attack and mind control, right? That prompts me to think perhaps some people that are inbred have certain toxic fungi that they could treat for themselves and see the changes. Now, of course, if you were tortured, then yes, as you need to be in an area where you're not tortured. But also any change, any tending to the system creates a point of interference. So sometimes you don't know what to do. What do I do? Oh, I'll put some essential oil on my toes and see what happens. Okay, I'll put some achillea on my teeth, and then I begin to say the names of all the people that were. It's true, yin and yang. Okay, balancing yin and yang, the fragmentation, the fracturing of this balance is what those. I wouldn't say parasitic because it's not parasitic if it serves something, okay? There's a certain stagnation in humanity upon which these fungi are built. And upon this stagnation, as we tend to that, we begin to uncover more and more things. For example, I was dealing with a psychic attack. I know for the particular person of a day attack, I removed that, then I reveal more stuff about the assassination of Peter R. de Vries. Really, that is how it worked. Okay, so you see how that thing is like we are like an ecosystem that recovers itself, and it's built on creating movement, creating notion, a change in perspective, but also learning discernment. And like I said, with fungi, it's one of the toughest things, because very trained people that forage fungi can get killed and get poisoned. So that is something, and the discernment here is not necessarily with people per se, okay? Because if you think about even a person that is, let's say you didn't go to therapy, okay? Let's say you just meet the people around. Most social engineers that you will meet are very lovely. They know how to create an atmosphere and environment of amiability, okay? It's a sense of beginning to create a life living society rather than stagnant fungal society upon which you can control, prey on, spread lies, spread diseases, spread misinformation, and nobody's going to know who's going to know. And even trained people, okay? And that is kind of a wake-up call for many things and many people to change. If it's your Aquarius house, you're going to notice that a lot, okay? And you're going to also notice something maybe acting for not wanting you to change, not wanting. But you also have to ask yourself, there are many other things, because when you reach, the more you reach alignment, you see, for example, I ordered toothpasta with juniper, everything cool. There was delay, and then there was some problems with the housing. Then I thought, well, to call them back and say, well, to get my toothpasta. Well, immediately I see the sign of MK Ultra, okay, the peace sign, in the company where I ordered. And I'm like, okay, that's stagnation. They got a fungal infection in the company, right? So you need to address this. So where do you consume? Where do you buy? And there are other things that suddenly become available. We had no olive oil, no olive oil, no olive oil. So I began to use some jojoba. I began to use some other types of oils, which is important to have it also for the carrier oils. The more divergence you have is good. And then suddenly I run into, before that I was asking for a donation for food for somebody who is sitting at the center where we live. And she gave me some food, but then I gave it to somebody else. And then the next time when I had money, I wanted to buy something by her. And then I see these bottles of olive oil. I got me 2 of these. One for cooking, and the one I made entire bottle, salves, essential oil blends, whatnot. Okay? And that is just so exciting, because it's kind of like one door closes, another door opens, and I never had this type of olive oil that good in my life. Okay? So sometimes things fall apart, but to fall together. And this is also something with fungi, we're talking about Pluto and the nervous system, it's a rejuvenation. It's a cellular rejuvenation that's needed. So for me, when I began to tend to my feet, then I would learn about the toe separators. And by the time there was the Nike everywhere, I also learned of what they did to Nike. Okay, the fungi Nike, about the fact that you don't have the separation for the toes. Okay, so either Nike will change that, but then, that's the thing. If you just used to buy brands, you buy this brand, you buy that, or you're in that lodge where everybody buys this brand now. And they tell you for the story of Nikes, this now we do Nikes. Now, like, fuck that. Okay? And if you want to example of person even from the lodges, well, we have Mark Rutte, he wore sneakers to work. Okay? That is, you can set a trend, right? You can do it by feet. And again, it's nothing wrong about Nikes. It's more like what's happened. What it's not a yes or no. If they change certain things, you might see me wearing Nikes. But the V shape we also saw in Israel before the 7th of October. Just saying. And more to do with that, Pluto is like the compost. So tending to that fungi, you're also emotionally composting things. You're decomposing what was stagnant in your life. Okay? And you reconnect things. Okay? So you see, if I didn't find that way to treat my teeth, I want other way to treat my teeth. I didn't find that way to treat my fungi, I would try other way. And the combination of ways is what works. But it's also true for the other fungal things that we have in society. Okay? That we need discernment, that even very experienced people can make mistake, okay, in discerning. And that it's about changing up things, exploring more. And for example, let's say even astrology, have a certain problem. Let's say I have Pluto square in my Venus. That can be quite malefic for personal relations. Power over women, proportion, all the damn fuckery. Okay? But it's also, Venus is also the garden, flowers. Pluto is also composed or to transform something. So to build the half moon is to transform the soil. To build a half moon next to pipelines. To build a half moon where there was a junkyard. Okay? To transform something. And then when I combine for these energies, then I begin to compose for this structure. And the decomposition happens when I'm an agent in that decomposition. Okay? I've worked the garden, then send some guy with a giant truck like he's going to kidnap people. I tell him, Arabic guy, I tell him, listen, you look at me like that. You come with a truck like that. Okay? I address this authentically. That's fucking creepy, man. And then he said, well, if you want me to move the truck, it's no problem. I said, no problem with the truck. Just let's respect each other's space and have a lovely day. Okay? But at first he was like, what? If you don't want me to look at you, cover yourself. And I told him, you want us to cover ourselves? No, we don't cover ourselves. And so this is how this decomposition happens. Or they put a watcher there. I tell them, listen, man, if I couldn't stand on my feet for that long, they're not going to pay you. And so you see how you create connection that is transforming, is decomposing certain fungal structures. Okay? Then what happens when you do that? Let me get for the mold in the house. That place I was living in, I really loved the place. In the bathroom, I'm not sure if they didn't cover up a certain mold. And I was too exhausted because the place is so lovely. Okay? So I guess it needed some space. And I guess some rejuvenation has to happen. Now for this place, there's also something that's growing a little bit fungal. So I told my parent, I thought that my parent is moving. I didn't think that this would be me. Okay? Because so you have changing around your house. This is rocket, this is eclipses. Please, mom, manifest a house that you want to be. At this, at that. What? Where I go? Where is that? And I get it. Because for also like this. And what you do is when you get that, you tend to anything fungal. So for foods, it's the usual. It's the greens, it's the fish, it's the nuts and seeds, it's the more organic you can get it, the best. And then you will learn about all types of food industries, as I do. My mother bought a cup. I have to show you. Just a very simple. I don't know where they got this, and I think it's too inexpensive to be ethically produced. But we are too, right now we need to increase our abundance to otherwise, and we need a satanic ritual abuse-free currency. This is a calling, this is an invitation. And right now, what I find in this cup, I enjoy so much that I feel like always making me teas that are healthy. This is coffee, but I feel like making me teas that are healthy. So sometimes the design of the food, of what you put your food in, is also important. Now you're going to learn about another industry. And you see, when you get how this is all playing out to your combating your fungal structures, it's like, hey, I forgot to leave. Let me tell you a story about rose oil. I think I told this before. With the rose oil, and I have it in a very condensed, it was supposed to be a salve, but I actually have to dilute it a bit. And it's a very condensed, it's so condensed that I have to scratch it to get there. And I put also rose oil. And rose is oil of love. Now, I've used the oil, but then it was like, hey, what about looking at the flowers? What about enjoying Venusian pleasures? What about connectivity? Okay, what about all these things that have been missing in your life? That's the rose oil. So for essential oils, it's like, okay, if it's missing love in your life, okay, so put rose. But to love and you think it's to love yourself, but it's also, you genuinely miss, okay, loving connections, loving your life in general. It's the highest frequencies of both romantic love and non-romantic love. But that is also how these things work. We talk about the Pluto, Venus, rose oil. It's fantastic. It's also shit fuck expensive. And they first made it in Bulgaria, and then I saw they make it in Turkey, but Turkey is now dealing with femicide. So this is something that they would need to compost, because that is very malefic for their existence as a country. Okay? So composting was the femicide. And people get that. You know, when I speak to a Palestinian person that they just go up here and think they can recruit you for human trafficking, I tell him, first the women went, and the men went, and the children went, and then what happened? Men began to kill each other by the hundreds. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay? Why do you think Moroccans voted for Geert Wilders? Because they know exactly what he's talking about. Okay? That's what's up. Okay? You want to leave the children in Netherlands. It says, do good. Yes, but if the child is kidnapped, Demick was of the allegations against Demick that he was snuffing children, raping and murdering and all that dumbfuckery. They were Turkish children, but also girls. The Handsome Amendment talks about the girls as well. So you see, you try different types of combinations of things, and it's the diversity that gives you the antidote. But the fungi are so diverse. So how do I counter that? Now I want you to think about another thing: lunar magic. You say malefic lunar magic. What is malefic lunar magic? Is when people try to ruin your upbringing, ruin your housing, ruin your relationship with your mom, and to the people that are elite society, what we call, they're born into that. Tortured in the womb, folks. Tortured in the womb. Okay? So, how do you combat that? Well, you begin to have more, you pay attention to housing. For example, when I was a young girl, I dreamed of houses made of wood. Just the other day, I saw my father, he was watching a video of a man and his grandson building a log cabin, a wooden cabin, okay? And you see how those things, it's like traces of things that you've completely forgotten about. The dreams that you have about housing, and then you're like going elsewhere. It's not that you necessarily something bad happened, but you need to revive that. Okay? Satanic ritual abuse, Freemasonry. That's something to talk about, right? How do you know something is a cult? When I look to see if there were any disputes or litigations around Masons worldwide, I see you have Quora, and people say, it cannot be such a good thing, like the Masons did you harm. Maybe certain groups or certain specific people, and they tend to that. I'm like, you're speaking cultist. you're speaking cultist. That is, and this is how we get to not address things in our research field. Okay, for me, if I hear somebody that was heard from astrologers, immediately I say, okay, what's the thing to say? Oh, if the astrologer gives me reading and they see I could surpass them, then they would try to keep me on the low. Well, that is not a unique thing to astrology or psychology or anything like that. But hey, like, how do we change that? What do we need to create for? Maybe there are astrologers that are not expressing themselves artistically fully. They say, oh, it's because of MK Ultra. Well, MK Ultra has arrived at astrology as well. So you go for the most esoteric place, and it's like, yes, it arrives there too. More think about Pluto and fungal stuff. You want to think about the many significations of Pluto. So even when I think about, and it began with AI, because I said, well, the antidote to AI is all these things that were stagnant in society that we need to change so that we're not becoming robotic. And I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Okay? For example, to have sexual relationships, entire society needs to be more informed of will and consent. Like entire society. I tell you that when I was, after the Me Too, you would think I'm imagining. No, I tell you what. Because after the Me Too, I said, I'm not going to litigate, I'm not going to this. I was a satire to curate myself, but I worked at selling workshops for self-pleasure, okay? Not even tantric self-pleasure, just like self-pleasure, not trauma-informed self-pleasure. And the definition for a sexual trauma was simply when the vagina not ready, okay? And sometimes people had problems. They grew up in a religious society. They grew up believing that they cannot self-pleasure. They grew up, I don't know, they were just pleasing even with themselves, not really knowing of what to do. Some people never touched themselves. Some people never had orgasm. So many, many things. And you realize the society is pretty virginal. Okay? And even when I noticed about myself, it's like a cycle. You learn something, and then there's sometimes a withdrawal. Okay, and then you tend to reconnect with the sexuality on an even deeper level. As we grow, as we mature, then there are more facets of our consciousness as well that are interlaid with that. And then you learn, let's say, to activate the Kundalini, and then what happens is people try to siphon your energy from you. Like, okay, I have to deal with that too. Okay, to regain my sexual sovereignty. And so you think that sex is something people know how to have for most people. And for the most places where they go to, it's also not. It's inversion of will and consent. And so will and consent is so important. You can try things, and then for the will and consent is so important, also to keep it for you healthy. And also, if you thought that I was kidding you when I said for most society doesn't know what will and consent is, no. Those were the clients for the workshop. Okay, those were the clients for the digital workshop. I made money off that ignorance. Okay, it wasn't a ton of money, but I was many people. There were many clients. Married, not married, old, young, people that escaped the violence, people that escaped the prostitution, people that went through incest. Many people, but also common people. Grew up in religious society, grew up in this, grew up in that. Common people. And some people even are like, I have great sex with myself, I just like to learn more. Okay? So, when you think about how important will and consent, you think about this is such a blue ocean for any enterprise, because literally nobody is informed of that. Like literally nobody knows. Okay? We're 2024 and people are like, yeah, the Me Too went too far. Okay? So I said what I said. Okay? When you say it like that, perhaps people understand. Okay? Nobody comes to haunt you, but you know? But this is true. And that is, yes, another thing that you learn about this. And the important thing is, with something stagnant, then you have like entities that begin to settle. And the cohabitants is kind of, if you don't like the cohabitants, then we will need to begin to change many things. So this is an opportunity. This is why in holistic medicine we say a medical condition is kind of like a wake-up call. Okay, it's an opportunity. For example, when I didn't know, obviously being raped is not an opportunity, right? But I didn't know that what they talk about spiritual warfare, that means that people are astrally raped as a pandemic. When that happened to me in 2007, I didn't even understand what it was, because at first it was a person I was attracted to. And I myself was like, wait, I was attracted to this person, but I didn't like the sex. And I was trying to make, what did I not like you? Okay? And I was like, what is going on? And I was like, yeah, they were doing programming. They were doing a lot of junk on the system. That was just so traumatic, and my personality began to split. And they didn't understand what happened. They were like, I told them I feel failure. They were like, were you raped? I was like, you raped me. And that was I'm sure it was a conversation that stays with the person if they didn't dissociate to 1,000 fractures because of the MK Ultra that they've been through. But that is kind of like, this is so fucking weird. Okay? This is just so fucking weird. So you think about something that, even with people that had attraction, that they could, something you don't even consider, because you think rape is by force, right? But yeah, but it's so, and the side effect of this is years upon years of not even knowing where to turn, or you try to turn to for help. People wish you group rape, but something is so, nobody knows what you're going through, and I'm like, oh, that spiritual warfare means people know about it now. So it's bad that people are raped by masses, okay? And nobody says rape. This is spiritual warfare. It's a turn to Jesus. Well, if Jesus stopped raping you when you turn to him and starts raping you when you turn away, then the problem might not be Jesus. There might be the will and consent. So say, Jesus, you first. It's not Jesus, yes, but I say, Mr. Jesus, Mr. Muhammad, first you stop raping, then we talk. But then what happened, you begin to remember things. And this is why for people that have sexual boundary violation, the answer is to curate, not to forcibly speak, but when the threshold is crossed, to speak. Not to force ever, not to force ever. But when you are speaking, that's the antidote. That's the antidote, because you come back to your body. And what the tactic that they did to try to silence you, it backfired, because you speak double times more. So, okay? Whereas where you speak, where you're not raped, you're like, okay, you begin to understand things, and you're like, okay, then that was happening, and that was happening, that was happening, that was happening. So they use that to make this control, but it's all wrong, because you get the wrong, if a fractured soul gives you a fractured picture. So fungi, also to do with that. The significations of Pluto, A-bombs and stuff, cellular rejuvenation and stuff, gravity waves, okay? You learn so many things when you tend to that. And the journey of Pluto in Aquarius is kind of like foraging. You need discernment. It's very challenging even for very experienced people. And it's a combination of diversity, of things, of habits, of places, of people, of sources for your nervous system. So when you change the way you travel, when you change the person you meet. Bless me. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Okay, I'm recording. Thank you. I'm recording. Yes, somebody smokes. So, funny thing is, I don't smoke at all. I hate the smell of cigarettes. Okay. Yeah, I'm the weirdest Dutchie. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't like weed in particular. I don't look for like psychedelics or anything like that. It was like very useless Dutch. And I mention Hans Samadma everywhere. So I'm a very useless Dutch. Um, and the MK Ultra. So the crown, it's true. So the thing is that Pluto is kind of hidden wealth, is a wealth of life that you've been missing, and an interconnectivity that you tend to when you tend to that nervous system. So I don't know, maybe for you it's even foraging in the woods. Like I'm building a forest, right? So yeah. Who knows? Like really, who knows? Okay. Pluto is everything that we have been fearing to look at, or that is just, stagnant. And when you begin to look at it, then you begin to see, first of all, shame dissolves because you understand authentically what is the issue. Okay, let's say, let's talk about my feet. Okay, why wasn't I tending that much to my feet? Well, years upon years, first of all, if your feet hurt and you're being told not to pay attention to that, and you have to have, and to find shoes is something that is a pilgrimage. Even so much as once we were in Belgium, and there were bigger shoe size for women, and Mama said we need to go to this shop one day because in Israel we never have this shoe size. So that is just thoughts, okay? Pedicure is something for the rich. Some people will go to pedicure and they have fungi. If you don't think about this, okay? You're a tomboy playing you get your tomboy in a sense. It's like you go to the gym, everybody has athlete foot. It's the usual. If you don't have athlete foot, it's probably you're doing it wrong, probably not going to the gym enough. Okay. If you go for the showers, then the showers, even when you wear the slippers or something like that you shower at the place for, well, for them. If you don't shower, you're stinky. If you shower, okay?